I received a message from a user named LostFaith1980. Basically, he asked me for some advice and thought that perhaps maybe the advice that he was asking for might be beneficial to some of the other viewers out there in the YouTube world. I'm not exactly sure why he chose me, but I'm more than happy to try and help because the circumstance that he brought to my attention is one that I have, in fact, interacted with in my lifetime several times. A female friend of his, who is now 18 years of age, had a pretty rough life. Abusive family, you know, problems at home, that kind of thing. But now that she's 18 and in college, she's going about life in a very messed up kind of way. She's being very, you know, promiscuous and drinking heavily and drug use. But his main concern is her alcoholism. He's afraid that she's going to drink herself to death. And wasn't sure how to go about helping her because he didn't want to interfere with her life because it's her life, but he doesn't want to just sit by and watch her die. So I guess he wants to know if I was in his situation what I would do. And the simple fact of the matter is, folks, is that in that kind of a situation, you know, people tell you you can't help somebody unless they want to help themselves. And in most cases this is true, but sometimes you have to help them against their will. If somebody's in the grips of alcoholism or some sort of drug addiction, it's an addiction, it's a sickness. It's not rational thought. You know, it's not somebody who's simply thinking to themselves, I'll die today. And if they are thinking that, then obviously that's not rational. Self-termination is not a rational thought. There's a whole line of conversation to get into the whole the process of thought suicide, or the thought of suicide. And I'll be happy to talk about that later. But right now, my advice to you, Lost Faith, and anybody who's in this situation, who's watching a loved one or a close personal friend kill themselves slowly with alcohol is, you're going to have to take an action. If they will not listen to you, as he says that she doesn't believe that she's hurting herself, that she can handle what's going on, if you see that it's gone in a direction that completely contradicts that, you need to take a step to help them. You need to get them some help. You need to go to somebody, especially if she's in college, contact her college, contact the people in her college. I understand that you don't want to get her in trouble because then if she has to go home, she has to go back to that hellhole. Explain the situation as you did to me to them. Look, you're a close friend, but this friend of yours who's had a really bad life at home, who when they go home has a lot of horrible things happen to them, is now drinking themselves to death, and I don't want to see this happen. Go to the people that can interact with her directly and ask them to help her. She's not going to want to do it herself. She's obviously self-loathing enough to be willing to abuse herself in that fashion. Believe me, I know all there is to know about self-loathing. So if they're not willing to do it themselves, you're going to have to take a stand. You're going to have to help them. That's why they have things called interventions. Interventions are, for those of you that don't know what an intervention is, an intervention basically is when family and friends of the person who is sick come together and confront them to show them you are hurting yourself and you're hurting us. We are asking you to please get help. That's basically what an intervention is. You're intervening in their life. You're taking a step in their life. You don't want to make them do things, but sometimes you're going to have to in order to help them get help them get better, help them get healthy. I don't want to see anybody have to suffer that kind of thing. I've been through it several times with friends. I know what it's like to see what alcohol and drugs does to people that you care about. And it's not an easy thing to deal with because you want to show them that you care enough to trust them. By taking some sort of action of this kind, you feel that what you're basically saying is, I don't trust you, or I think that you're too weak to help yourself. But the simple fact of the matter is that they are too weak to help themselves. Otherwise, they'd see that what they're doing is hurting them. So that would be my advice to you and anybody else that's in a situation like this, is to seek help for the person if they are not willing to seek help themselves. It's true that if you're not willing to help yourself, no one else will be able to help you. But sometimes you've got to guide them along the path to help them find that point where they're wanting to help themselves. So if you know anybody who's an alcoholic or a drug addict who is hurting themselves to the point of potential termination, please go out there and do your best to try and help them in any way that you can. And if you're seeing that that's not going to work, you got to take one more step. It's hard, it's frustrating, and it may make you hate yourself, but in the end, you and the person that you help will thank you because you were able to have the strength that they cannot. So Lost Faith, I hope this gives you my perspective on what's going on. If you have any more questions, don't hesitate to ask. And anybody else that wants advice from me, for whatever reason, you're more than welcome to ask me for it, and I'll be happy to give you some. So until next time, hopefully the next video I'll have will be on a lighter note. My thoughts go with you, Lost Faith, and your friend. And I hope that everything turns out well. Let me know how things go. Until next time, folks.